Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, February 2nd. So we are in a new month.
That was loud.
We have knocked down 1 month of 2022. It's hard to believe that we're in 2022. I still think we're in 2021. We're just being tricked. But anyway, this is Coffee Pan Dulce.
That's right.
I'm one of the hosts, Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. And how you doing, Christian?
Perfect timing. That's a grito, by the way. It's very long grito. So, when we have our
lozenge.
when we have our grito show, we all practice was it last year or the year before we did our grito show? And I have been practicing, and I don't know if I can do that long. That's like a 30-second grito. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Pan Dulce. Thank you, Jenny. Sorry the music was a little loud. You know how I am. So, thank you for covering for us. Welcome to Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Barb Bacon, Mama Ruth, and we want to welcome you today. We also want to welcome back Dr. B. We haven't seen you since last year. Wow.
It's been a while.
I don't know if that's so anyway, well, welcome. Today is February the 2nd. We want to welcome you, those who join us on Facebook Live, but also those who join us on YouTube and Facebook later. But we also now have to say all of the people who now join us on our audio podcast, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google, all of the other ones that have accepted us, please join us on those as well. But with that said, yesterday, Jenny and I were mentioning last night, we were talking, we actually broke a record the last 28 days. We're up to 27,000 people. So it is very exciting for us. If we could only convert that into dollars, that would be, who knows, one day. Hey, if Joe Rogan can do it. Yeah, if Joe Rogan can do it, we can do it.
Yes,
so, yes, that's right. So with that said, let's go around the Brady Button screen today. Introduce yourself and your imaginary button. Who wants to start? I don't know. I don't have that up since we're taping. Full disclosure, we're taping the show early. Let's go Jenny, Dr. B, and Barbara. Does that sound okay? All right, here we go.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, local Charlotte LGBT advocate and human rights advocate. I am for Moms Demand Action and for healthcare for all. I think healthcare is a basic human right and an infrastructure and economic right that everybody, if we have human rights to Twitter, we definitely have human rights to medical care. Dr. B?
Right, I'm George Bohmfalk, retired neurosurgeon. And my primary advocacy is Medicare for all, to echo what Jenny said. It would solve so many problems. Also, more recently, I'm taking up a lot of self-education in anti-racism and Black Lives Matter and all of that.
Hi, I'm Barb Bacon. I'm a community advocate here in South Charlotte. And yeah, I am also healthcare for all. I just had a nephew who got COVID and didn't have any health insurance and stayed home and was sicker than a dog. So very important. Also, gun safety. We had another gun incident here locally, and it's just getting scary. And I can't think of the other one. It's late at night, so I can't. My brain has almost stopped.
That's okay. I know you've been very busy, Barbara, but thank you for joining us. So, we did miss you the last couple of weeks with all the snow. I'm sure you've been excited about that. But those who follow us know that those who follow us know that most of us are actually here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we've had 2 weekends of snow or sleet. And I don't think we'll have a third, but I love it. I mean, I don't know. I know you guys probably don't like that. Dr. B came from Colorado, so he probably, I don't know. I'll let him speak. So, all right. With that said, I'm Christian Cano. My imaginary buttons are healthcare for all, Medicare for all, Moms Demand Action, gun sense legislation, and in my heart, Black Lives Matter for Joe Oldham, who passed away last year. So with that said, please salute to your neighbors, whatever you're drinking. This is dropped in the morning. So if you're drinking in the morning, it's coffee. If it is taping, it's
mojitos.
It's margarita. And also thank our Pan Dulce sponsor and supplier, Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Manolo's Bakery, please visit your Black and brown small businesses. Manolo's Bakery, I did see him today, actually. And he looks great. He just received some awards from his, he's actually originally from Colombia, I believe. And he received some awards from there for supporting communities and back home and so forth. But, all the stuff he does here in Charlotte, North Carolina is wonderful. And he did tell me that they are making every year, as they do, the King's Cake for Mardi Gras. So if you need a King's Cake, if you don't know what it is, it's the cake where they have the little monito, I don't know what they call it, but it's there's a little thing.
Jesus.
Yes, that's right. There's something in it. And you don't eat it, just like you don't eat the corn husk on the tamales. So with that said, today's topic is anti-vaxxers or brain surgeons. And this is a wonderful topic because we actually have one on today. And so
Not an anti-vaxxer. Not an
that's
anti-vaxxer.
right, not an anti-vaxxer.
No. Just a brain surgeon.
Jenny and I were talking about this, and we originally were going to call this anti-vaxxers are rocket scientists, and then we changed it to brain surgeons, and then we realized, hey, we're going to get Dr. B. It's like, it would be perfect, but we'll tell you why we want to talk about this. But before we do, very quickly, let's talk about our 3 current events. If you want to comment on those in 30 seconds or less. The former president, 45, had a rally in Conroe, Texas. And he insinuated a lot of things, but one of the things he said is if he runs, which he's saying, if he runs, and that he will consider pardoning the individuals from the January 6th terrorist attack or insurrection, whatever term you want to use. So that's one of the things. He also encouraged people to do riots in big cities if he is the prosecutors come after him and he gets indicted or something. He said in that speech, they're not coming after me. They're actually using me to come after you. So that's what he said. The next one is the National Archives reported that a lot of the documents that were turned over to them because of the Presidential Act, it's actually a law, were ripped up. And Trump actually had full-time people on their staff Scotch taping things together so they could give them to the National Archives. And he got so angry because they were doing it. He actually fired a couple people in their early years, but then they convinced him just to. Anyway, that's another one. The last one is there's a gentleman in North Carolina that's made news. A lot of Congress people here in North Carolina, the alt-right congresspersons, have used him as a kind of a poster boy. And they've said how, it's tyranny because he is not going to be able to receive a transplant, or was taken off a transplant list because he's not received vaccination. And he said he would rather die free. So does anybody want to comment on any of those in 30 seconds or less?
I will.
Okay.
I'm just going to do a quote, and it's going to apply to all 3 of those topics. Education isn't memorizing that Hitler killed 6 million Jews. Education is understanding how millions of ordinary Germans were convinced it was required. Real education is learning how to spot the signs of history repeating itself. We must never forget what hate does to us.
Very good.
Good quote.
I'm not going to comment on anything about the former president because
Okay.
I think it doesn't deserve comment. But on this unfortunate gentleman up in Lincolnton with diabetes and the transplant, my understanding is that transplant systems around the country currently all had a rule that, you need to be vaccinated. The donors and the recipients need to be vaccinated, because wouldn't it be kind of crazy to go through all this expense and everything and kind of have you die of a stupid preventable virus? So I see it. It's harsh, but I mean, at some point it's like, come on, there's common sense. But isn't it interesting that people are willing to die for this misplaced ideology? And I don't feel joyful. I mean, I feel terribly sad about it, but I certainly don't feel like we need to change the rules, because the rules are there for a very sound reason. I also read about a gentleman, can't remember where, Cleveland or somewhere, he's on a heart transplant list.
Yes.
Similarly, they took him off because he refused to get vaccinated. So they're going to be, those around, but it's not a matter of politics. It's a matter of medical science.
Yep.
And basic common sense.
Barb, you want to comment on any of those?
I'm with Dr. B. I don't even say his name anymore, so I just don't think it's worth talking about. But the thing I wanted to ask Dr. B is I heard today that and I don't know who is saying this, but they said someone in the government is saying that it's time to just really end our approach to this pandemic because the new Omicron variant is what it's stealth Omicron or whatever they're calling it. It's a little bit more contagious. It doesn't seem to be any more lethal, and it's just going to keep going over and over and over again. So we just need to get back to our normal life. How do we do that if we have all these people that are not vaccinated? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I turned the channel on the radio. I'm like, maybe it was, I know I wasn't listening to Fox News, but.
No, I've heard stuff, similar comments like that. Dr. B, you want to mention that before we actually go into our topic?
Well, I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought he said Jenny, but I'm about half paying attention. Go ahead, Dr. B.
Well, there's a lot of people in government, and a lot of people have different ideas, obviously. I don't think that's a mainstream idea. However, there is a growing sentiment that, people aren't dying like they used to, even though more people are getting it. And they say we all are going to get it sooner or later. So let's just, kind of settle down and not be so shut down, protective, isolated kind of thing about it. I don't know. I still think that even if the percentage is 1/10 of 100% of people that either get really sick or long COVID or die from the Omicron or these other milder variants, why take the chance? I mean, Not that many people die from a cold every year. A bunch of elderly people in nursing homes do die from the flu, but not kind of otherwise younger, kind of healthier people. So I'm still vigilant, but I sense a growing fatigue in the country. I'm kind of hoping that in the next couple of weeks, these numbers are going to plummet. There might not be another surge, and maybe this will be kind of over and settle into an endemic kind of phase where it kind of rumbles along like colds and flu. But I think it's still a bit early to relax.
Is it your medical opinion that we do you think we know enough about what could happen to people if they get COVID and they've got some comorbidities? I mean, not that it's going to kill them now, but I don't think we know enough about it.
I know that's the other thing. I was thinking all these people that complain about, all these scientists are always changing their mind and they can't agree and all that. Well, go to the middle of a football game and look at the halftime show. Who agrees on who's going to win at the end? I mean, things happen and things change. And so, we don't know. We're not going to know until this is over.
Let's go ahead and go to our top. Jen, you are actually muted. So go ahead. Go ahead,
did
Jen.
it last week. I guess it was my turn to do it.
That's
this
right.
week.
Jen, real quickly, and then we want to go into the topic.
Actually, literally, this is going to lead into the topic.
Oh, excellent. Perfect.
is the reality is with a really fast mutating, short cycling virus like COVID, COVID-19. One of the points of slowing it down is because it does mutate so fast, because we're now on, Omicron, which is way down the Greek alphabet. We're still fighting Delta as well. Like I think approximately 35 to 40% of the cases in the United States are still Delta. So with Delta and Omicron raging on, the reality is especially amongst the unvaccinated, that there's just such a churn. There's such a churn of cases that yes, in other countries that are highly vaccinated, you're seeing it wane pretty fast. Yeah. But in a country where we have 37 million Republicans not vaccinated, for example, that's a big block of people. And they're essentially just passing it through that entire population.
So Jen,
keeping that virus alive.
Sure.
And the way it's mutating, I mean, I don't see an end in sight anytime soon. It's to me, and I'll ask Dr. B. I was like,
sure.
how do you prevent a virus when you have almost 40 million people that won't even help fight? I mean, where do we go from there?
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, Dr. B. I don't know if you wanted to answer that. Hi, I'm Christian Cano. Thank you so much for joining us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. And also thank you so much for watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. But also don't forget, you can actually listening to us on your favorite audio podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, and others. Once again, thank you so much for watching us and listening to us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Have a great day. I mean, that's a great question, Jenny, and I know where you're coming from with that. And you know, the topic today is anti-vaxxers or brain surgeons, and obviously it's a little sarcastic, or I don't know the term we'd use, because what we have seen over the last several years, and we actually had a former host of ours who in the early days of this global pandemic was actually walking into Whole Foods without a mask when mask mandates were being implemented here in our region, and laughing about it and posting like a teenage girl, you know, or teenager, you know, that I'm not wearing a mask. Look, all you have to say is this, you know, as if though this was some, you know, thing. And one of the things, and especially with this Joe Rogan thing that's been happening over the last couple of weeks, and then the Aaron Rodgers thing going on, Jenny and I have had these conversations about how many of these anti-vaxxers, they have convinced themselves that they're like these scientists and that they're just so smart, and it's just so. I just thought I would ask an actual brain surgeon. I'm interested in what you have to say. I don't even know how to ask this question, but does it frustrate you as a professional in the field that you're in, an expert in the field that you're in, to have these people who actually think that they are just as qualified as you are? I don't know how to ask that question. Jenny may be able to ask that question better.
I think we all understand. And,
sure.
Right.
You know, I don't think they really think they're as smart. And I think this is more of an ideological thing than a supposedly science-based thing. That they have an opinion that you know, like this guy with the transplant. They believe that their personal freedom, you know, overrules common sense and having to bow down to the norms of the rest of society. I'm comforted. Yeah, it is terribly frustrating, and it is very difficult not to almost feel a delight when one of them dies, you know, because like, oh, he got what he asked for, you know. There's an article, I think, in the New York Times kind of saying the German term for that is Schadenfreude or something, pleasure in other people's misery. And it's a human tendency, right? If somebody falls down, and we tend to kind of laugh, you know, you know, there but for the grace of God, and we're happy it didn't happen to us and all that. But that's a kind of an amoral feeling,
sure.
Isn't it, right? So we shouldn't feel that way, but it's difficult not to, right? But I take great comfort from the long arc of history. And somebody has said that over the millennia, there's been these periods of superstition and belief in, you know, astrology and all those kind of things. And the thing that sums it all up for me is myth, M-Y-T-H. Myth is free and science is dear. You know, so it's hard. Science is hard, and it's hard to understand, and it's hard to perform, and it's hard to verify and all that. So it's a lot easier just kind of believe something that fits your frame of mind. And so if you kind of believe that all this vaccine stuff is malarkey, whether you believe any of these crazy conspiracy things about trying to control your life or anything, but if you tend to believe that the methods weren't sound and it may be dangerous and I don't know what's going to do, and if that then conforms to your ideology of it's my body, my choice, mm-hmm. Although they don't feel that way about abortion, do they?
No.
Well, you know, you can see how it kind of fits and becomes very convenient to adopt this attitude, almost a pseudo-scientific religious, ideological, got my group behind me kind of thing. But, a lot of them are paying a price for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I take great delight in the fact that this tennis player Djokovic got kicked out of Australia. It came close. I mean, I was really fearful that the country was going to roll over and say, well, it's millions of dollars in revenue and the prestige and all that. So they didn't.
Yep.
And maybe one by one, common sense again going to rule. But throughout history, there have been waves where common sense rules and then craziness rules. And so time will tell. But this is nothing new. So,
Jen, you want to jump in real quickly before I ask another question?
I guess what we're really seeing here is, and I agree with you, Dr. B. I think what you said is spot on, except I would replace craziness with tyranny. And this is really about power. This is a power struggle. The conservatives, especially the Republican Party, knows they're obsolete. They just saw it in this 2020 election. They got obliterated, that their cult leader, their death cult leader, got fired by almost 8 million votes, and that their propaganda didn't stay the test of time because their ideology killed a lot of people that didn't need to be killed. And had we adopted some of the same policies that Australia and many of the European countries had adopted, at least, and this is a proven fact backed up by CDC, the ECDC, and the UKHSA, all said, based on the numbers and the models that they did, looking back the last 2 years, at least 50% of the American deaths could have been prevented by just doing 2 to 3 different measures. And the reality is, now that we have done enough comparable numbers and modeling, the death rate is somewhere between 920,000 to the low million, for sure. That means that approximately almost 500,000 people died for no reason.
Yeah, that's
and so they're realizing, these merchants of death and disinformation are realizing pretty soon there's going to be a wave of accountability. It also comes with a reign of tyranny. There's always a pushback right after that. And you can go to the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, all that. Then there's always a period of accountability.
Yeah.
We're
about to get into that era.
So good point, Jen. And Barb, you want to add anything before I ask Dr. B? I sent him some questions. Okay, well, listen, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And if Jenny and I have talked about over the last couple of weeks, probably as long as this has been going on, misinformation is a huge, huge and profitable industry. A lot of these individuals who do this misinformation, they have people subscribe to newsletters, and they're conspiracy theorists, and they're, whether it's Bigfoot or whatever it is, they've got these people dedicated, UFOs, whatever. It's a huge, industry population. And so the misinformation comes out so much that it's so hard to keep track of. One of this misinformation that was sent out was there was a former basketball player, John Stockton. Admittedly, I didn't know who he was, but apparently he was a big basketball player who played for some school. Gonzaga?
Utah Jazz. So
Utah.
He was in tandem with Karl Malone.
Okay.
That was in the same era pretty much as Michael Jordan. So
if it wasn't with Roger Staubach or Harvey Martin, I probably don't know who he is. So apparently he had been spreading information that's been going around a long time, that the vaccine has killed over 100 professional athletes, and in prime, they're dropping dead. And so the university he went to actually took his season tickets away and banned him from coming because he was spreading this information. And they have continually, USA Today and everyone keeps looking at this, and there's no proof of any of this. But apparently there are people like him who have been spreading this information, and people believe that. So Dr. B, I mean, how do you, and I know you're not an expert in that area, but does that must frustrate you as a medical professional and a scientist when you hear, how do you combat that? I mean,
you just kind of keep, It's the old playbook from Hitler and Himmler, right? If you kind of tell a lie over and over enough, people begin to kind of believe it. Isn't that the Trump mantra? I mean, he set records telling the most lies, and we're in this post-truth era, and people say these preposterous things like Alex Jones and Dr. Oz, for heaven's sake. I mean, they just, as you said, make money using, selling their diet supplements or energy drinks or something like that to gullible folks who believe that because it fits with kind of something they want to believe. So no, I think you just have to keep kind of pounding away. I mean, you talk about frustrating. It was frustrating when a neuroradiologist, Scott Atlas, became more of a advisor to Trump. Now, he's a Stanford doctor. He's a neuroradiologist. He doesn't know one thing about viruses and epidemiology, but somehow with that bona fides, he was up there giving this huge platform, and all these doctors that Laura Ingraham had on talking about, what's the horse pill, ivermectin, and that other, hydroxychloroquine. I mean, they just wouldn't give it up. See, it's frustrating, but I think in time things come out, and now there's this big fight with DeSantis because he wants to make the government or somebody kind of pay for what is it, these antibody things or something that plasma or whatever.
Yeah, the treatments.
That doesn't do that much good. And the FDA and everybody says, look, guys, fine, but you're wasting your money and it's not doing it. He's like, oh, we got to do it. Yeah, it's frustrating, but it'll all kind of work out.
Jenny has talked about this before, about how gullible I don't say the word gullible. I don't want to put words in Jenny's mouth, about how this misinformation and how do you call it? It's like some type of marketing type of thing, Jen, that people use to kind of
propaganda. I mean, it's a propaganda to prop up bad decisions and incompetence by a failed former guy. They have to whitewash the current history, the modern history of a massive failure by their cult leader. And when you use this propaganda, they're still trying to make it sound like, the vaccinated crowd is the one that led to all these deaths. And they're trying to spin it that if we just get the proper medications, whether it's urine or horse dewormer,
Clorox,
or whatever,
Clorox.
Don't forget the bleach.
light or whatever it is, all of a sudden rays of sunshine and come through, and this is just going to go away like this, like the flu. And it's and the reality is they're selling this. They're going to keep selling this until one or two things happen. Either our society opts out of them and bans them from all public spaces and hospitals and everything. And hospitals are already going towards this because of limited resources. They're saying, you can't get a transplant. You can't qualify for this. We can't have you in this space. We may just have to send you home. If hospitalizations stay at this same pace and diminish the capability of the hospital to run properly, who are you going to kick out, the vaccinated or the unvaccinated person? Well, you from a business standpoint, if they're wiping out your staff, if they're wiping out your resources, you got to make hard choices. And hospitals are allowed to do this. They're allowed to, uncooperative patients can be fired by a hospital and doctors. And if it's just like, if you're in there being treated for diabetes and you're getting 10 Snickers a day snuck into your hospital room by your family members, they're finally going to say, hey, boo-boo, I think you just need to go on home.
Hey,
what else would you do for you?
Yeah. Hey, Dr. B, one of the things that we've seen lately, two things real quickly, and see if you want to comment on any of those. There was an article, I think I sent you this, and they were talking about, because people had questions about why you may not have caught COVID when you're living with people who test positive of COVID. Yeah. And we personally know, I have a very good friend here whose mother caught COVID, sister caught COVID. This person did not catch COVID and was like, I don't know, I'm not catching it, and then caught it like a week later. So I think that it's like this, I don't know, how do you do you have any comments on that, or?
Yeah, that again is one of those things that to somebody who went to school and studied science and college
Sure.
and med school and all that, it's like, well, yeah, people are different and biology is different. And there's a whole lot of differences between you and me and my wife and me and my son and me. And so, yeah, it's not a surprise whatsoever that, if one person gets it, everybody doesn't. It's not a surprise if everybody does get it too, but there is variability. So it's not, crazy. It's not unscientific that some people won't get it. That's just kind of the way communicable diseases work or don't work. And there's just an immense number of variables that lead to those types of observations. And one final comment about that, the basketball player, that is, his statement that it's killed all these, that is so easily provable and debunkable, that is just so preposterous on every level that I really don't even pay attention to those kind of statements. They're just so absurd that, that's like, a cat ate a human. It's like, no. And these crazy pictures you see and stuff. So I don't even pay any attention to those kind of ludicrously absurd stories. There are plenty of others that we do need to be more concerned about than that.
It does remind me of the heyday, and I don't think people read it as much as they used to, but remember the National Enquirers that you could buy at the checkout lines at grocery stores?
Yeah.
And,
My mother-in-law's favorite magazine.
Sure.
If you read it as like The Onion, and you just don't take any of it seriously, it's pretty funny. If you don't buy into it, like, they'll have the wolf boy on there and the aliens that landed on the White House lawn and all these just outrageous things. And their investigative reporting and a lot of them were conspiracy theories rehashed and they had to just been sitting around drinking or smoking weed and up these stories.
Watch this.
But the conspiracy theorists now, to me, are the mass media, social media version of the National Enquirer, to where you just have to look at that and I'm no rocket doctor. I don't even have a college degree, but it doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize that drinking an anti-parasite medication or your own urine is not going to cure COVID.
Or if it would, there would be some scientists, legitimate scientists to propound,
and if it keeps me from getting COVID or heals me, sign me up. But until my own personal physician or pharmacist prescribes that to me, and I think a lot of this could be ended if the media or the specific right-wing parts of the media would just say, we don't necessarily endorse the vaccine for all people, but at the same time, here's the disclaimer.
Yeah,
you should with your personal physician.
There's too many clicks.
Pharmacist, and that should be said, or they should be made to say that by the FCC and go, now we're going to put on some questionable stuff, but at the end of the show, we're going to end with a disclosure that you should check with your physician or pharmacist before you make a final decision on the vaccine.
Well, Jenny, that's
end a lot of this.
That's one of the questions I wanted to ask all of y'all, how you felt about it, because there is a movement, and it's actually a very bipartisan movement, to hold social media, internet, that kind of stuff more accountable. There's some legislation that's being pushed, and for different reasons. The Republicans are pushing it because they feel like conservative voices are being shut out. Other people are saying Joe Rogan podcasting it doesn't go under the same requirements, the FCC requirements, as a radio station or a television station. They don't have to put those warnings, or an ad, a Ford ad that has all that little script that you can't read on the bottom. And so what they're saying is, does Joe Rogan's situation that's happened over the last couple of weeks, is that going to be the tip of the eye? Is that going to be something that pushes people to say these platforms now need to require someone like us, if we're talking about COVID, to put that disclaimer on? I know Spotify is going to put this disclaimer on all of the podcasts that go on their platform that talk about COVID. I don't know how you know that unless you put the word COVID in the title of the podcast. And so I don't know. How do y'all feel about that? Or do you have any comments on that? Barbara, you look like you want to say something.
I think it's just to the point for me that, I mean, I used to be a news junkie.
Yeah.
I would, especially Sunday morning, I'd make my pot of coffee and I would sit there from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock. I don't do that anymore. I can't stand the talking heads. I wish that more would be done. I was just flipping through the channels, and here's on Fox, they're talking about how the rioters are coming to all the cities and they should be doing. And I'm like, what rioters? You know, and when Art and I went to the Chicago Marathon, my family had me terrified to go to Chicago because of all the crap they were hearing. Yeah. And here's Art and I strolling down Michigan Avenue, you know, trying to find some place to eat. People had masks on. There was absolutely nothing to be afraid of. And I called every one of my siblings and said, stop listening to the news. I'm fine. I'm in downtown Chicago and there's nothing bad going on other than some food. But other than that, you know, I'm not wasting my time on that anymore, but I just don't see anyone really trying to stop it.
Yeah, the misinformation.
Too much money.
Yeah,
on both sides, and I don't know. It just makes me.
Hey, Jen, do you want to comment on whether we need to start putting disclaimers on our podcast?
Well, I think anytime, and I would do it on this show.
Yeah.
Because I personally have that philosophy. So because I post so much about COVID on my social media, being pro-vaccine and the reasons why, the few people that I know in my friend circles that feel comfortable talking to me about it, that have not taken a vaccine, have approached me because, you know, the first thing I start off with is I ask them why they have not taken it. And then my response always is, have you checked with your personal physician? Have you talked to a pharmacist and got a vaccine consult? Because every pharmacist in the world will talk to you about this. It's their job. That's why they went to school. And I know I've said this on the show
all the time.
And because it's like a soccer ball that goes out of bounds, I just kick it back into play, and I force them to defend their position in a non-confrontational way. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you to go to the vaccine. I don't know medical history. I don't know enough about you. I cannot tell you that. I cannot practice medicine. I'm not legally allowed to do this. Here's what I do know. Yes, I personally was scared to death to take the vaccine because I just, I just don't like shots. It had nothing to do with how quickly it was developed or anything like that. I'm just not pumped about taking any medications because I don't like taking antibiotics either. But what I do know is I read several things posted by doctors. I talked to my pharmacist, and after those conversations, 100% was confident when I went into StarMed and got both of my injections and my booster, because not only was it the right thing to do for my neighbors, it was the right thing to do for myself. I did not want to take the Russian roulette chance of getting COVID and passing away when it was death is almost 99% preventable if you get the vaccine and get boosted.
Exactly.
But it was my pharmacist that explained to me the basic education of the vaccine and why they were confident, and they had also been at that time just vaccinated because there was no boosters out. And I think all shows, I don't care whether it's this little show, this little bootleg show that we have here, all the way up to the big daddies like Joe Rogan, who have millions of viewers. We all have a responsibility.
Exactly.
Once we take all the minutia and all the craziness, and we talk about all the silliness, I think all shows have an obligation, whether it's in print, streaming at the bottom of the screen, or said at least once or twice at the end of the day, just like all the drug manufacturers that do the TV commercials, and they say, At the end of the day, basically, you got to consult with your personal physician on whether, this blah, blah, blah drug is right for you.
Yep.
Everybody should be obligated to their nerves, especially in the media. They should have a nonpartisan view on this medication, this vaccine, and say, at the end of the day, no matter how we feel about it, you should check with a pharmacist or your doctor, and leave it at that.
Sure. Dr. B, what do you think? I mean, I have another question to ask you, and then do you think that like podcasts like this, I mean, we're just a small community podcast, and we've tried to do our best to have some kind of hold like some kind of responsibility by trying to like talk about things. Yeah, we've slammed anti-vaxxers, but at the end of Jenny has been very consistent about saying, don't believe me, talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist, and talk, I'm like, CDC's telling you this, believe this. I believe the CDC whether than I would some person's posting on. I don't know, Dr. B, do you have any comments on that?
I don't think that kind of having a little blurb at the bottom that nobody can read is going to accomplish anything. I'm somewhat encouraged over the past, whatever it's been, 6, 8, 10 months, that a lot of these big platforms like Facebook, Twitter, some of the others have just said some folks are just so outrageous and so many complaints and so many advertisers pulling out that we have to do that. So that's kind of probably a more effective, somewhat market-based, public response-based method of doing this. And like the Spotify thing, I find that very interesting. So I think that's probably better than any kind of government mandate or, because then you just really open a Pandora's box about, the free speech and all that.
Yeah. One of the things that Jenny and I have talked about, and I don't know if you guys how you feel about this, but it seems like over the last 2 years since this pandemic has been going on, I've always believed in the free markets, maybe not as much as some Republicans have used it, but during the global pandemic, the free markets have won. The anti-vaxxers call it cancel culture. I call it the free market. We are making decisions on where we spend our money and who we support. And when we have a crazy quarterback saying that they take their medical advice from Joe Rogan, we made the decision, I don't want to follow the Packers. I'm not going to buy Aaron Rodgers stuff. He's crazy. He's ridiculous. I don't want to buy State Farm. I don't want to buy the things that he's doing. And that's the free market. And so when people are talking about Joe Rogan and how the free market, when Neil Young pulled out, when the other big legacy person,
Joni.
Now, 2 more people also just pulled out today. Spotify started as just a music streaming services, and they wanted to get into the podcasts, which is why they signed that big contract with Joe Rogan. They're right now the number, they own like 38% of the market share of podcast. Apple is second. And if all of these artists continue to pull out, they're just going to move to Apple, Amazon, where they're going to make their, make their revenue. And so I think it's ridiculous to think. I know I said this before, and I don't know how y'all feel. What is it? Neil Young and what was the other?
Joni Mitchell.
Yeah,
and Neil's law firm.
Eric Clapton too.
Yeah, well, Eric Clapton's actually
he's an anti-vaxxer.
He's an anti-vaxxer. But I'm thinking, if you're looking at someone to put your ads and to spend money with, wouldn't it be more likely the Neil Young people who know him, the people who can afford the items that generation can afford, rather than a Joe Rogan? I mean, I joke about, why is golf on every single Sunday? It's because people who watch golf can afford the products that they sell on NBC. I mean, who else can buy the Rolex, the summer house, and all these kind of things? And so, I mean, I would never want to lose the baby boomers because of their dispensable income. So I don't know. How do y'all? So I think the free market's going to end up winning.
I think it trails off what I said. I think we're about to move into an era of accountability on a lot of fronts, whether it's the January 6th terrorist trials, whether it's this anti-vaxxer disinformation movement. History has a way of repeating itself in holding people's feet to the fire that did very destructive things. And when you scar an entire population the way these anti-vaxxers have, and especially people that have lost loved ones because of disinformation, people are going to hold them accountable one way or the other. You're going to see a huge backlash. I think you're already starting to see it.
Yeah.
And I think employers too are going to play a big role in this, because if I was an employer and I had a good sized company of 100 or 200 employees or more, that would be my idiot test. Is you're not vaccinated? I don't really want the liability of you sitting in a cubicle in a call center, for example, which I've owned a call center before. I've owned a good sized marketing firm. And the last thing I'd want is the toxicity of a vaxhole sitting in that deal, because I don't want their ideology in there. And the second thing is I don't want them bringing in COVID. I don't want them take, it's dangerous enough, but I also don't want to employ a person like that.
Yeah.
I don't see them as making good decisions. And in a marketing world, for example, or in a corporate world, I would hire people that I believe that are viable people that will help the company push forward. Many times I used polling data from my employees. I would pull some of them aside that had good ideas and say, some of our best ideas that made our company have hyper growth came from my employees. But I also want them to have full confidence that they work in a safe work environment and are safe around those employees. If they have an assumption that I'm going to hire and make the best possible hiring decisions and employment decisions. And to me, somebody that's that toxic and that selfish, I don't want on my team.
Yeah.
And many management people, and you've run hotels and started up hotels and all that. You have a long career similar to mine in corporate America. We both probably hired thousands of people over our career.
Yep.
And do you really want the loud idiot at the bar type personality in your office?
You want to stay away from the toxic people. I'm sure even Dr. B, when he was, doing his thing, he'd rather work with people that are less toxic. I mean, can we all agree with that? I mean, Barbara spent many years a professional in the pharmaceutical industry. I don't
even want loudmouths in my sales force.
Exactly.
I just no. I mean,
it's just, but over the last 2 years, I don't know. I agree with Jenny. A question I have real quickly.
Hello, everybody. Hope you tune in to Two Queers in a Truck. It comes on right after Coffee Pan Dulce. Appreciate you always watching and being there for us. I hope we can entertain you and be in your homes or wherever you listen to us. We're also on Spotify and many other places where you receive your podcast shows. Thanks for listening. Bye. Have a great week.
Bye, boo-boo. A lot of the people who are these anti-vaxxers, it's the loud ones, it seems like they are the same individuals. If you listen to what they have to say, they're against a lot of things. It's not just COVID and vaccines. They're also against, we said this before, when you scratch the surface of them, there's other things they hate. They hate Black women. They hate Jewish people. There's a lot of other rhetoric that comes out of it. And when you listen to Joe Rogan, because he's been in the news lately, and, you think that the only bad thing he's ever said was about vaccines. And, but that's not. He also said, I don't understand why you shouldn't be able to call yourself a Black person unless you're from the the deepness of Africa. And it was like the most offensive thing in the world. And so not only should you, if you're not a follower of Joe Rogan, he says a lot of things that are completely unacceptable to say or to. So you just scratch beneath
Rush Limbaugh, is that who he is? I mean, that's who he sounds like. I've heard his name, but I've never heard him speak.
I don't know, Jenny, what do you think?
He's the Chad version of Rush, without the pills. More weed, less pills. But anyway, Rush was real fond of narcotic pills over his lifetime. So, I'm sure he's hanging out with Saddam right now. Well, but anyway, I personally think, and I think it's always ridiculous, because I can just imagine if Dr. B was prepping a patient and talking to them right before they put him in anesthesia, and then they start giving Dr. B advice on how to do brain surgery. That's what I would think that the medical industry must be going, why are all these non-medical people saying this and not looking to the medical industry for leadership? Like, there's some kind of intelligence disconnect.
It's like the Twilight Zone.
But part of the problem is that there are these kind of outliers in the medical community. I mean, like I say, just look at these ones that Laura Ingraham loved and the Scott Atlas guy. These are credentialed, high-powered Ivy League kind of university professors. But the guy who invented or something, Linus Pauling, I can't remember what he invented. He was a prominent scientist back in the 50s or 60s, and he came out with this notion that if you take a whole lot of vitamin C, nobody ever has to get a common cold again. Well, it's like, it didn't work. But he was a smart guy. I mean, he was a smart guy, but he came out with that kind of crazy idea. I knew an oral surgeon back where I practiced who's a great oral surgeon. For some reason or other, he had this thing about how fluoride in the water was terrible and it was a communist plot and it would rot your teeth. And it's like, what are you talking about? I mean, it's just preposterous how some people hold these ideas that are kind of counter to everything else in their whole background. But the world's full of them. And so it's easy for folks who want to believe these crazy things say, well, that doctor at Stanford said that, it's got to be true. And, everybody else is kind of hiding something. So that's part of the problem is these folks that legitimize these kind of crazy ideas because they have credentials.
Well, and I think the one thing about the social media platform and the internet platforms and on all this is that essentially, 30, 40, 50 years ago, to be in the media, you usually had to have a journalism degree. There were so few platforms, like it was CBS, ABC, the major networks, and then some of the cable networks like CNN, stuff like that. But there was very few opportunities for people that were non-credentialed to have platforms to talk about major social things and news and even editorials and stuff like that. But now we're doing it right now. Yep. We're self-publishing. We don't have to pay really anything to do this. We can stream this on Facebook, and as long as we're not saying anything too illegal or outrageous, we don't say anything crazier than Joe Rogan. But we're literally self-publishing. Give me the next show, the next show. I will. I'm locked and loaded and ready to go. But the platform and proliferation of billions of people being able to self-publish anytime they want, 24 hours a day on the Twitter machine and the Google machine and all this, I believe now we know our neighbors better than we knew them. I think Dr. B is spot on. That we've always had these potion and lotion, multi-level marketing kooks. Because we've had the scam ways and the ones that say, well, my $40 soap is better than the one you buy at Walmart. And we've always had this weird kind of cult Christian, kind of conservative, download shade tree pharmacist type ideology, like the vitamin C doctor. But I think now that they have such an amplified voice with such easy access to billions of people, that it's just so much easier to put all this kookery out there.
Well, we only have about 9 minutes left, and I want to end on something positive. I've made I will be making a Lent resolution when Lent starts in a couple of weeks for 40 days. Not only will I be giving up, as I always do, alcohol except beer, and I'll be giving up as many carbs as I have, but I also want to end every show with something positive, or try to be as positive. So full disclosure, Dr. B, when this first started, one of our hosts told us all we had to do was take vitamin C every day. We sent off for this powdered vitamin C that you put a teaspoon in every day, and I have been taking it every day since this. It's more just a habit now. I take it with fiber, and I will tell you, I'm as regular as I've ever been in my life. So, there's some good that has come. There's some good that has come out of this, and so I just want to say, that's something positive that's come out of this. I also want to say that Pfizer today has put a request in. Good news to actually give vaccinations to children under 5.
Yep.
And they say that will be another game changer if that's approved. And so that is something that there's some positiveness coming out here. So does anybody else have anything positive they want to add?
Well, I think at the end of the day that, I can speak for myself. I'm fully vaxxed and boosted, and, I wear masks and crowded public places, and I try to make, as wise of decisions as I can and all that. But, this too shall pass one way or the other. Every plague humanity's had has always run its course at some point, and this will run its course, and I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail and will do the right things without having to go to extremes. And I believe it always does. I think, I'm not an alarmist from the fact that people say, oh, we're going to have a civil war and a national divorce and all that. I think this is just people who are trying to make themselves sound more important than they really are. And they're not so smart. But I think the reality is, I think there's a ton of people. We saw it in 2020.
Yep.
We saw 81 million people, some way, somehow, hook or crook, go in and fire an incompetent person. So we're going to go a different direction because we're going to bet on humanity, and we're going to believe in our neighbors, and we're going to appeal to our better angels.
Good point.
I believe that we can.
Good point, Jen. And I know you've always been real positive about this. We're going to go around here, but I just want to add one other thing I forgot, because there's so much we wanted to get in, a lot of things I didn't go over with Dr. B. But one of the things I thought was very interesting is that the same individuals that are talking about how Snowden, Snowden should be able to come back because he's a hero and he's doing all this kind of stuff, are the same individuals, and they're usually libertarians. They're the same individuals that want Dr. Fauci dead. So it's like this warped. It's this weird. I don't know how to. I don't. Anyway, it's the weirdest thing in the world that a person who's actually here in America saving lives, they would rather have that person dead, but the person who went to Russia and is hiding, that's their hero. And I think
and risk American lives.
Exactly. And so, I wanted to play this, but I think I just want to refer people. WCNC, the local station here, it's the NBC affiliate, and I think all of their company, TEGAN, I forgot the name of the company, and they have owned a lot of stations around the country. They do this thing called Verify, and so they verify all these rumors on social media. They've been doing this for about a year, and they're really, really good at it. And today's was about people saying that they had heard, I had heard, if you take the vaccine, you could have heart attacks and it could, and so forth. And it was false, but they do a great job of verifying. I would go to those kind of things. And Jenny and I talked about this over the last 2 years. To me, what is the most discouraging thing is there are people that we all know that have what I've been called passive aggressive and soft conspiracy theorists. These are the people that post stuff on their social media who say, well, I heard this. What do you think about this?
Yes.
Someone said this, and it's this passive aggressive. Someone told me this, and we used to get a lot of them when this early started. When someone would send it to us, and going, "Well, I heard this," and it would frustrate because I'd be like, "Why don't you just use Google and say, does this occur?" And it pops up, no, fact check. And so these people, they do these things on social media so they could get around, that they're like being, and the reason I say that because this Joe Rogan person who apologized on Sunday did a 10-minute video saying how he was going to do better. He was going to do better. This morning, less than 24 hours after he did that, he tweeted a fake article about a research that was done, and he didn't look at the article. It had said this has been proved false. It's been corrected. He tweeted it, people screenshotted it and said he never learned, and then he deleted it. Someone like that is the type of, that shows you who he is. And so anyway, I just wanted to say that before we kind of wind down.
But I will say, for the people that watch our show,
Yeah.
On Twitter, if you do subscribe to Twitter, there's 2 phenomenal feeds. One's called No License for Disinformation. It's doctors and medical professionals and scientists that are combating medical industry insiders fighting against disinformation in the medical industry. The second one is Voices for Vaccines, which is giving out credible vaccine information for families. And so there's definitely some powerful tools against disinformation by credible industry experts such as scientists, doctors, virologists, medical doctors of all kinds that are going out and investigating these claims, verifying it, and spreading the word, fighting against disinformation. So there are some positive notes.
Yeah.
And just like Dr. B has been a wonderful advocate and has come onto our show graciously since the start of the pandemic, pretty much. One, because I know Dr. B has a tremendous amount of integrity and fights for the cause of healthcare for all, but also is a voice of reason, and there's a reason why Dr. B's a brain surgeon, and the rest of us should listen to people like Dr. B, incredible doctors and medical professionals that once you talk to them, more often than not, you're going to hear the credible information you need to hear. And I do encourage people, since we're at the end of the show, I do encourage people to go to their local doctor, their family doctor, a university doctor, somebody that has a credible position, or there's pharmacists, aka drug dealers, on every corner in the United States. There's so many of them, and they have a little sign that says consults right here. You just walk up and say, I want to know about this and this on the vaccine. Should I take it? Should I not? And those pharmacists are happy to discuss this. And I strongly encourage you, if you watch the show and you're not vaccinated, don't listen to me. I have 0 college education, but listen to good sense. And good sense is go to the experts, not your buddy with the YouTube channel. Okay.
Yeah. I agree with you. And Dr. B, I just want to say that we do thank you for coming on over the last 2 years. You have made an impact, and I'm sure there are people who've watched this that probably only watch us because you were on. And I hope that they've heard something, and if they were wondering whether to make a decision or whatever it was, that they've done that. I also want to say, I doubt when you were practicing that you ever walked in to do your surgery or that the patient was still awake. I'm sure there were people that took care of all of that for you. So when Jenny said if he walked in and the person was talking, I doubt he had people to do that for me.
Well, they were awake, but they never gave me advice on how to do their surgery.
Oh, okay.
I just can't imagine the audacity of telling a brain surgeon, oh, by the way, I read in the National Enquirer that you should use this technique or whatever. I would love to see the video of that. And I would just want to see Dr. B's expression on his face. I think that would be fabulous and priceless.
That's right.
It'd be like the YouTube channel of people with Walmart. I mean, just the craziness.
Well,
but it's the equivalent to that now. People are giving out medical advice that are not any more qualified than I am.
Exactly.
And I'm just like,
okay. So we ran out of time, and actually Barbara had to leave us. She had a family situation to go on to. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. We're going to go around the Brady Bunch screen. Tell us where we're going to be in 30 seconds or less, since we keep to that so well. Also, to remind you, after this show, about 15, 20 minutes after we drop this show, 2 Queers in a Truck, Jenny and I, it is very structured now. It's actually a fun show. So
as structured as we're going to be.
Jenny is very different on that show than she is on this show. On that show, she's like, all right, time's up. So, all right. So let's go around the Brady Bunch screen. Jenny and then Dr. B, tell us where you're going to be, please.
I'm not doing too much. I don't have much plans. You'll see me in about 15 minutes on the other show. And I'm working on some Pride things. We start our Pride planning in March. So if you are a fan of Charlotte Pride or live in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina or South Carolina area, stay tuned. You're going to start seeing some announcements about events starting in the month of March. And always check our website or any of our social media sites on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
I'm going to be staying pretty close to home as usual. I have been going back to the gym here at our condo or our apartment because I'm afraid of totally falling apart. And I have banjo lessons once a week. I go up to Cheryl's Ford. It's a very interesting little drive up there around Lake Norman for a weekly banjo lesson with masks on. So that's my new challenge and adventure and pleasure.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much.
To me, if no one else.
Well, we're going out to the country to visit family, so we will be away from other people. Actually, Lincoln County, the same county that person that the story
Good
did.
luck.
Just want to remind people that the CDC has recommended, I believe, that if you're going to be in a crowd of individuals or a lot of individuals, they recommend you wear an N95 or a K95 mask, and they're very inexpensive. You can get them for free. A lot of President Biden has actually sent them out to free. Also, you can get a free at-home test. I think that one of the packages has 4 at-home tests. You can go online to do that. And so that's pretty much it. I just also want to remind you that we do have 3 more great shows in the month of February. We'll post that after this one. Another video pops up, and now that we know how to do all this editing. So with that said, we do want to thank you so much, and we will see you next week in Coffee Pan Dulce. We will see if this music works. Let's see. Ready, Jen? Did that work? Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for watching us at Coffee Pan Dulce. Don't forget our February shows are out. February, we've got 4 great shows. The first show is Anti-Vaxxers are brain surgeons. Great show. We'll be talking about, I think Dr. B will be back with us on that show. The second show in February, filibusters. Are they anti-LatinX? We'll be talking with our neighbors about that. The third show is, I think Jenny and I will love this show. Gen Xers are angry and hate America. Why are they? We'll be talking about that topic. And then the last show of February will be, what is the dumbest American state? Texas or Florida? I don't know, Jen, you got an early prediction?
I'm going to say it's a battle of the wits, half on each side.
All right. Well, those are our show in February, so don't forget to join us in February.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Or if you haven't tuned in, get over there and see our podcast going on. We are now on multiple podcast platforms. We are still on Facebook and many more for Coffee Pan Dulce. We had 2 esteemed guests today as well. Dr. B, one of our habitual, and he's also a brain surgeon too. So we have an in-house brain surgeon. And then Barb Bacon, which is a health advocate, and she worked in the pharmaceutical industry for many years. 2 knowledgeable guests about medical knowledge, and I think you might learn something. I did. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, thanks for being our fan.
Bye, y'all.